Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Associated Students of Oregon State University Presidential Debate, brought to you by Orange Media Network and ASOSU. I'm JC Kalama, news editor for the Daily Barometer.
And I'm Jade Minsloff, ASOSU beat reporter for the Daily Barometer.
Tonight, we are joined by 3 tickets running for student body president and vice president. They are Jack Hill for president and Gretchen Fujimara for vice president, Isabel Nuñez Perez for president and Metzin Rodriguez for vice president, and Dylan Perfect for president and Emily Warren for vice president.
We will be asking questions of each ticket related to 3 themes chosen by the ASOSU Elections Committee. The themes are student fees, wellness on campus, and platform and experience.
All questions were written by Orange Media Network staff and collected from students and edited for clarity, and the candidates have not seen them ahead of time.
Each ticket will have 1 minute to answer each question. After all 3 tickets have had the opportunity to answer the question, they will each be given 30 seconds to respond to their fellow candidates if they so choose, in the order in which they signaled their intent to speak to the moderators.
We will also post questions taken from the students of Oregon State directly to each of the tickets for their thoughts.
We as the moderators will ask questions of each ticket, keep time, and ensure the debate remains civil and professional.
Now, each candidate will be given 1 minute, 30 seconds for their prepared opening statements.
First, we have Dylan and Emily.
Hi, my name is Dylan Perfect, and I'm running for ASOSU President. I'm a third-year student in political science with a minor in Spanish, and I'm currently the coordinator of government relations for ASOSU, and last year I served as the president pro tempore of the ASOSU Senate.
And my name is Emily Warren, and I'm running for Vice President of ASOSU. I'm a third-year biohealth sciences major with a pre-medicine option. I'm also a first-generation college student, and I currently serve as the President pro tempore for the ASOSU Senate.
Next, we have Jack and Gretchen.
My name is Jack Hill, and I'm running for ASOSU President. I'm a freshman studying business administration and entrepreneurship, and I'm currently a House of Representative.
And my name is Gretchen Fujimara. I'm a first year here at OSU, and I'm running for the ASOSU Vice President position. I'm a biochemistry student with a pre-med option. Our platform is focused on CIA, connect, inspire, and acknowledge. Through this, we hope to bring together the associated students of OSU, inspire them to make changes to our campus, and acknowledge their efforts and everyday successes. We are focused on many initiatives.
I hope to implement large-scale events that tailors better to our demographic on campus, such as an esports tournament, Super Smash Bros., Mario Kart, stuff like that. I also want to create a network of social media influencers and content producers and nurture their relationship with our student body so we can deliver better content to our students.
And I would like to see changes on how we support women on campus, as well as what the university and students can do to change our current environmental impact. We will fight for more transparency and accessibility of ASOSU. We want to make OSU a more inviting and successful community. My name is Gretchen Fujimara.
And I'm Jack Hill.
Thank you for having us.
And now, Isabel and Metzin.
Hello, we are STEM United by Students for Students. My name is Metzin Rodriguez, and I'm running for ASOSU Vice President. I'm currently a 4th-year student in the College of Agricultural Sciences studying sustainable ecosystems, and I'm also a tour guide here on campus, always sharing the Go Beeps spirit with students. Our campaign is really focusing on the hashtag ActNow, accountability, community advocacy, and transparency. But we really like centering around the student voices of our students here at the university, from our colleges to different clubs, organizations, and philanthropies on campus.
Hi, my name is Isabel Nuñez Perez. I'm a 3rd year studying political science with a minor in Spanish, and I'm running for ASOSU President. The administration is good at telling us what to do better, but they're really bad at giving us the resources to do so. We crave their support, but we're spending thousands of dollars and we're not getting the resources we need. There's students that are facing homelessness, food insecurity, and it's not being treated as an emergency on this campus. We care about representation through equity by preparing students with the tools that they need to succeed at this institution. Not only by coalition, but by supporting underrepresented students, the administration and ASOSU need to do better to support these students. We need to do a better job by providing resources that increase student retention and sense of belonging at this campus.
Thank you for your opening statements. We will now move to the first theme of the debate, student fees. What are the principles you would use to critically examine student fee recommendations and determine whether to pass or veto them? Again, each ticket will have 1 minute to answer the question. We will begin with Jack and Gretchen.
The Fujimara Hill campaign will focus on two key principles: accountability and continuity. Accountability, we're focusing on getting all the student fee funded units to come up with key performance indexes that shows us quantitatively the impact of every student fee dollar have on the students. And continuity will be working on a long-term 5-year plan that makes sure student fee committees do progress in the direction that we want them to over the 5 years. And this will help reduce the steep learning curve and inefficiency we see in our current student government.
And we must consider every student's financial needs. $5 for one student means many different things for another student. That's something that we would definitely take into consideration under our administration.
Thank you. And next is Isabel and Metzin.
Community advocacy is a really important part of our Act Now platform. Community advocacy entails talking to students, attending the student fee meetings, and really getting involved in just the integral parts and the foundational parts of setting these student fees and really understanding what the students need. And this includes not only talking to the student fee committee and student fee chair, of course, but also going out and doing outreach, talking to the different students that are facing homelessness and houselessness and struggling to pay for childcare and all these different things that are student needs, and these basic student needs aren't being met.
Adding to what Isabel said, we also want to emphasize on accessibility, being able to portray the information in a way that is accessible to all of our students here on campus. From out-of-state students to in-state students, it's really important for them to know what is going on with this procedure. So we really want to advocate and really be more transparent about the work we do with the different units, bring awareness from the HSRC unit to athletics to all of our students on campus.
Thank you. And now, Dylan and Emily.
Over $26 million of your student fees are allocated by the ASOSU, and that we understand that that's a really big deal, which is why under our administration, we want to make sure that every dollar impacts as many students as possible, while also making sure that the most critical services on campus are funded. But that's not just our judgment, it's also listening to the students of what services are really important to them because they're your student fee dollars. And that's why under our administration, it's not just about having an open door policy, it's about going out into the OSU community and really connecting with student organizations to make sure that your needs for your student fees, they're going to the right places.
And I've already worked in my current role as the coordinator of government relations to bring about conversations surrounding capital investment in student fee funded buildings, which helps us address the question of how are we going to fund our projects? And I think that's a critical part of the conversation.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the next question.
We'll now move on to the second question of the debate. According to a research paper published by the Research in Higher Education journal, tuition hikes are linked to decreased student diversity on public college campuses. What will you do to make sure that tuition costs and student fees that are prohibitive to students of color are not unduly raised? First up is Isabel and Metzin.
This has a lot of context. Traditionally underrepresented students are represented for a reason because the rising cost of education is so integral to people it's integral to not having financial accessibility. And this is a very big topic, and this involves not only the student fee process, but this involves even engaging in conversation with the colleges and the board of trustees. And this is a very big project, and especially this includes lobbying. This is a very big project that I think I'd be very excited to work on. But it includes a lot more than just student voices. It includes a lot of coalition that we will bring with administration and students.
As an underrepresented student myself, I've seen the impact that programs like CAMP, EOP, and TRIO have to our students. So we really want to make sure that all those programs stay within our community and bring it to more awareness within our students. It's important that they feel like they're supported, that they belong here, and that's what we want to focus and bring for them.
Next is Dylan and Emily.
Well, JC, thanks for that question. The central sort of tenet of our campaign is that your voice matters. As part of this platform, we want to put forward the most progressive, people-centered, and action-oriented campaign of any candidate in the race. And to that end, we have to realize that the cost of a higher education, when it's over 6 figures for an in-state public university education, that there's something terribly wrong here. So we will change ASOSU's approach to government relations on the issue of investment in higher education to make sure that tuition-free public college and university is a priority.
And now Jack and Gretchen.
I think an important part of this is lobbying the OSU Foundation and other generous donors to come up with scholarships that focus on increasing diversity at Oregon State. Cost is obviously a very strong inhibitor on whether or not students can come to colleges. And I think as student body presidents, we'll be working hard to lobby for donors who will actively support diversity versus trying to just like not nickel and dime student diversity. And yeah.
Out of one student's tuition, 78% of that is what the student has to pay out of pocket. 22% of that is from the state. Many years ago, this was flip-flopped, and I believe that in the future, at least under our administration, we hope to make the state pay for more of student tuition. Thank you.
We will now move on to the third question. How would you respond to criticism from OSU students who feel that a recent increase in student fees that ASOSU supported and approved was too high? We will begin with Dylan and Emily.
So I think this is a really pressing issue, and it's something that comes to mind when we're looking at fighting for capital investment in not just ENG-funded buildings or tuition-funded buildings, but in student fee-funded buildings as well. It's a conversation that comes into play when we ask, what revenue sources are we bringing in for non-critical services for students? If we're going to make sure that Safe Ride is fully funded, if we're going to make sure that the Human Services Resource Center is there to help students eat, if we're going to make sure the Family Resource Center provides child care resources for students, we can't do it on the backs of students. We can't increase the cost of higher education any further than it's already gone. So a key point of our strategy with regard to student fees will be making sure that we are always looking at those alternative funding sources, and in our state level advocacy, we believe the opportunity exists. It's just something we have to fight for.
Thank you, and we will move on with Jack and Gretchen.
When I first saw how much money it would cost me to come to college for tuition and student fees, I was taken aback and shocked and not very happy, honestly. But once I delved further into looking at where all of my money goes to and how much OSU has to look forward to and save for future projects, I realized that my money is going towards very well-spent endeavors. And one thing under our administration would be to make ASOSU and the OSU funding a lot more transparent so students can look these things up. And if they do want to make a change, they have the knowledge to do so.
Yes, and I think a good way to combat this kind of criticism, which I think is fair, is to focus on basic needs that the student units have versus spending extravagantly on other activities.
And now Isabel and Metzin.
There's a lot of criticism within ASOSU and the student fees, but one of the things to face criticism is to really go and ask people for help, reaching out to your resources and asking for help. For example, the new student fee budget for next year increased by 7.41%, and even though it might not be the best fit, we really are thinking into account the good things. There's still going to be resources for students who are part of SNAP benefits like HSRC or accounts on Twitter where they have different type of foods for the students. And we're also really thinking about our student needs and what we want to provide for them to help them.
Right. I also personally it hurts the 7.1 increase, 7.41 increase along with other universities. Schools increasing and tuition is just going to keep getting on higher. But what comforts me about this is that there will be funding for childcare, there will be funding for supporting the HSRC, and there will be funding for diversity and health wellness initiatives for student athletes as well.
We'll now move on to the fourth question. The question is posed as a rebuttal for Dylan?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to speak on this issue just on a matter of sort of the premise of the question and just sort of our approach to it as an institution. I think we have to recognize student incidental fees comprise about $1,200 per year, while meanwhile the cost of education as a whole comprises over $40,000 per year if paid in full. So I think we have to recognize that the real prize here is in making sure that students are represented in the decision-making process. Emily has experience with that on Faculty Senate.
So one of the things that sets our campaign apart is that we recently voted to ensure that students have representatives on the Faculty Senate.
And Jack, did you have a rebuttal as well?
I just want to say that that's a great point. I have this analogy that students are kind of like succulents. They come here for 4 years and they grow. Well, administration is a lot like evergreen trees. They stay here, and a lot of times they're not open to what student has to say. And our goal here is to make sure we bunch a bunch of these succulents together and put them right in front of those evergreen trees. So these evergreen trees are open to our reception. When we say tuition hike is too high, we need to lower how much we spend on the administration and give more to the students and teaching faculties.
Yeah, and what Dylan said was true. $1,200 is a small part of what students pay, yet $1,200 per year is a lot of money, and that could go towards child support. It could go towards more food. So it's not a lot of, it's still a lot of money.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the fourth question. The question is posed as a hypothetical situation. Say there's a decrease in student fees toward ASOSU. What steps would you take to maintain the quality of your services for students after said budget cuts? First up is Jack and Gretchen.
Well, I believe that to decrease student fees for a long duration and keep it sustainable, we must lobby Oregon State for more funding. Currently, Kate Brown did not add any additional funding for the Oregon Public University Support Fund, and I think that's something that we can change. It's something that needs to be changed.
Now, Isabel and Metzin.
A lot of what I learned about the student fee setting process is that service level is top priority. Of course, it's important to get more services, to include services and access and accessibility to students. But what's always at the top priority is service levels, and that won't ever be cut, or that won't ever be on the chopping block for us within our administration, because service levels need to be kept so operations can run, people can provide resources, and students can have access to the resources that they need are so important to their retention and their ability to study and be healthy.
Because at the end of the day, we really want to provide resources for students to stay on campus, that they feel a sense of belonging here within our community, but also introduce them to policy or in initiatives that they really matter to them. That even if it's a trip to DC or to the Capitol, we really want to provide those resources for our students.
And now Dylan and Emily.
So, part of this question is asking, what are we going to do on our side of things? Of course, I've worked in a state legislative office. I've seen how these conversations go. And of course, we need more funding. I think all candidates here can agree on that. But what are we going to do when we face these hard decisions, when we have a decrease in the available fees? And I think the answer is that we have to put critical student services first. When students can't eat, when students are sleeping on the street, that's a problem that affects all of us. And we need to address it head on and put those units first.
All right, did I see a rebuttal from Jack?
Oh, no, sorry.
All
That
right.
was just hand gesture.
Metzin, your rebuttal.
Yes. Adding to what my other candidates are saying, it's also important to bring into consideration enrollment at the university and see how these numbers are affecting all of the students across Oregon. And it's really important to not only introduce students to the university, but also having retention programs for our students and being able to be approached to them. And those programs like Mealbox really help our students for them to be here on campus, as well as many other programs too.
Dylan?
I just wanted to jump off of that and saying that, I think when we're looking at resources that students need, especially in terms of nutrition assistance, Mealbucks is a great program, and I think it goes a long way into addressing student needs. But we also have to realize that means testing is a barrier to entry for many students, and that's applicable there. So what can we do to make sure that students are able to eat, that students are able to access the resources they need without having to go through a bureaucratic process? I think that we need to address that head on, and I think we can do that with our campus partners.
Thank you, candidates, for your responses. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll hear a question directly from the student body.
Cool.
To generations from around the world.
Ability to play their own game.
That polar front coming straight down.
joined OMN because I have always had an interest in creating things. I've been a DJ here at KBVR FM since my sophomore year, then I became a podcast director, and then finally I got the position of station manager. I've learned a lot of things that I would not have learned in my classes. Things like how to be a proper journalist, interviewing sources and stuff. I've gotten a lot of real-world experience here at KBVR FM that I've been able to use to get internships and jobs in the future, and so learning just a lot about how like the real world of media works has been really helpful. I think Orange Media Network provides opportunities for people to get involved and extend their learning beyond what they're learning in their classes and stuff, and so giving them skills that they can use whether or not they pursue a career in journalism or broadcasting is something that OMN is able to provide to all students from every major, every college on campus. Not everyone at FM wants to be involved in broadcasting in the future, but I've been able to learn a lot of the skills that I need to get a job in the public radio field. I'm Roman Battaglia, and I am the station manager for KBVR FM.
Welcome back. Now we will hear a student body question, followed by 1-minute responses from each ticket.
What are you doing in Salem to help lobby for funding from our governor to try and get funding for the Engineering Student Technology Fund?
Our first answer will be from Isabel and Metzin.
All right. Unfortunately, Beaver Caucus doesn't, or sorry, it's not one of the priorities of Beaver Caucus. Beaver Caucus does a lot of capital funding, but what's something that I don't agree with as far as the priorities of Beaver Caucus is that we need to do better to build coalition and communicate with different colleges to get those perspectives and get those needs heard of the students, because I have experience lobbying with PSLA, and I have a lot of connections, and Metzin and I also have a lot of experience working with legislators, and to get those students those resources, because I don't know where those initiatives already exist, and that's disheartening, right? Because students are getting their voices heard, and we need to be better about getting our resources together, and that's something that I have a bunch of ideas of how to work on that right now and just that question, but those resources aren't out there for everybody. And that's part of increasing our accessibility and our accountability that we will do within our administration.
And now Dylan and Emily.
Well, you know, the answer is bottom line, yes. Of course, we will support investment. Something we've done to date is we've spoken to multiple campus organizations and student groups who are in engineering, in particular the Hybrid Rocket team.
We recently spoke to the OSU Hybrid Rocket team, and you know, part of our campaign is letting students know that we want to hear from them, and we, under our administration, we will continue to support engineering students and any group on campus that is really wants to have their voices heard, because that's really the core of our campaign.
And now Jack and Gretchen.
Out of the few times I've met Governor Brown, I know that she's a very caring person, and I think if we can recruit students specific to the kind of things we're asking for, legislators will be more open to that. So for example, if we are asking for a grant in engineering, we'll go to the robotics club, we'll go to the engineering sororities, and find students with this kind of specific needs and go out on canvas and get them to Salem to speak with the legislators. And that's how we will support these kind of lobbying efforts.
Yeah, and we really support anybody with different backgrounds or different majors to really get involved in this process and lobby for what they want. And that's part of our campaign, is to connect students with each other who have the similar interests and then inspire them to make these changes on campus.
We will now hear a rebuttal from Isabel.
Right, to what Dylan and Emily said about meeting with different student groups and organizations. We met with the engineering sorority, and a very disheartening thing that I heard is that ASOSU currently isn't supporting students that are reaching out. She mentioned how she's emailed and tried to get in contact with ASOSU, and it was just very disheartening, because it made me think, like, is her voice not being prioritized because of the school, or it's just like the email got lost in a bunch of different emails? So something that would be prioritized with accessibility is seeing those emails and seeing the importance of their perspectives of students really trying to get involved with ASOSU because they realize the importance and the representation it has within this university.
And now a rebuttal from Jack and Gretchen.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Isabella said. So many times have I been told, oh, just go to the ASOSU website, you'll find the information there. And honestly, I find the website really confusing and hard to find specific and reliable information. And that'd be one of the first things I change if we get elected is the accessibility of the website.
And that's why we're focusing on this new approach to social media, where hopefully students will be more open to the network of social media influencers that we have developed, and will make that kind of information more digestible by student body.
And now a rebuttal from Emily and Dylan.
You know, I wanted to be sure to touch on the point of the Beaver Caucus and building coalitions on these issues. You know, I think it's fair to say that our ticket is the most experienced in the race, and I don't say that lightly. In terms of the groups that we've worked with and the people we've talked to, as a board member of the Beaver Caucus, I have been privileged to be able to participate in those discussions and moving forward. If elected, I would work with the Beaver Caucus to make sure that we're able to work together on these issues.
Next, we will move on to the second theme of the debate, wellness on campus. The first question for Dylan and Emily is, do you feel that unhealthy drinking patterns are prevalent among OSU students? And if so, how do you propose to use your position to alter the culture and lower those numbers? We will begin with Jack and Gretchen.
One of the first bills I encountered in the House of Representatives was a review of a bill last year called the Amnesty for Reporting amnesty, and that relates to alcohol abuses. I think more bills like these and working with UHDS and student conduct to have more educational approach to how we approach the drinking culture on campus could help significantly lower the people who drink irresponsibly.
Yeah, Jack and I are both part of RHA, which is the Resident Hall Association, and we talk to resident students daily on campus, and we find that there's a lot of students who do drink and a lot of students who are secondhandly affected by people who do drink. And this is a culture that we both really look down on, and we hope to change that in the future.
All right, next is Dylan and Emily.
So I happen to know a thing or two about the medical amnesty resolution that was passed last year. I wrote it and I sponsored it and was extremely proud to do so along with our community partners on campus. And this year, I'm currently working with some contacts from Greek Life, the former IFC president, and the current IFC president, as well as our partners in Congress, to make sure that we're able to address two issues: reporting amnesty, which is the discordance of our code of conduct policies with state law in terms of medical amnesty, and medical amnesty itself in terms of loopholes in state law that we want to work to close, and we will do that.
All right, now Isabel and Metzin.
I believe that the drinking culture, the negative impacts of the drinking culture at OSU has to do a lot with student sense of belonging on campus. And it starts with the dorms, right? Everyone lives together and they just invest, they get stressed from school, they don't have the resources that they need. And what I've found in my personal experience is especially students from underrepresented communities, and this is on campus and this is nationwide, students from underrepresented communities also turn to alcohol abuse as far as coping mechanisms for not feeling like a sense of belonging on campus, with then not feeling supported with the resources that they don't know exist.
We also, in addition to what Isabel says, we want to introduce wellness initiatives where like students within like their first year, like even throughout like their OSU experience, they are exposed to different pilot programs where like they learn more about the pros and the cons about it, and like really like advocate for them.
Definitely. Jack, your rebuttal.
Oh, yes. Another initiatives that we've thought up about tackling the drinking culture will be introduction of either a safe drinking space or a support group like Alcoholic Anonymous, but we'll rebrand it so it's more digestible by the student body and not as prejudiced.
All right. Dylan, your response?
One thing that is important under our administration is removing caps for the number of times that students can receive mental health services on campus. It's really important if we're going to change the drinking culture and increase student belonging that we make sure that those mental health services are continually accessible to all students.
And this is something we've heard from a lot of students, both on the campaign trail and in my current position, so this really sort of hits home.
Okay, we will now move on to the second campus wellness question. What resources do you feel that OSU is obligated to provide to students who are housing insecure? And do you feel our current approach is appropriate to the scope of the issue? First, Jack and Gretchen.
This issue really hits home for me because I had a freshman classmate who had to move back to Portland because he could not afford living on campus because housing and dining is too expensive. I feel like the university has a responsibility to provide housing that match more, at least with like the Corvallis apartment housing rates for students of low income. We can go through a similar process for financial aid reviews and make sure students who are already struggling financially can get solid subsidized housing so they can continue to become students here at Oregon State.
We will now move on to Isabel and Metzin.
Housing and food insecurity is a crisis on this campus and isn't being treated as an emergency. And part of it is changing the discussion and how we talk about these things and erasing the stigma from it. Part of it starts with transparency. Like, I personally benefit from SNAP benefits. It's really nice, and it helps a lot with just, paying for school. And there's a lot of amazing resources that are at the HSRC that do provide emergency housing, but they also are underfunded. There's wait lists for these things. It's terrible that there's a crisis on this campus and it's not being treated as an emergency. And something that we will do in our administration is definitely treat it as such and work with the resources that we have already and connections we will build in order to address this issue.
Adding to what Isabel said, it's also important for students to understand their mental health and providing those resources from anything from capsule, single therapy to group therapy, and being able to provide something for them that they feel like they belong here and that there's someone that they listen to, and provide them with those resources so they feel like they're welcome here.
And now Dylan and Emily.
In addition to the critical services that OSU should be providing to housing insecure students, it's also important to recognize the immense cost of living in the dorms, and it affects really every student. I know that as a transfer student here, the primary reason that I didn't attend my first year out of high school was that it was financially impossible to afford to pay for dorms. And so I think it's really important that we reassess the requirements for staying in dorms your freshman year, and that we make sure that the college is more accessible and that we understand,
Okay, and we will move on to Jack's rebuttal.
Yes. You make a really good point about students choosing not to attend because of the high cost of housing. However, we believe that simply choosing not to do that for first year is damaging because the first year housing requirement is done in part to make sure that we do foster a community among our freshmen that can go further for the next 4 years. So I think a subsidized housing plan for students who are low income or struggling will be a way to both make sure that they stay here and build community.
And now Dylan's rebuttal.
And I think that there's certainly something to be said for subsidized housing for low-income students. I also think there's something to be said that when you look at the cost that students are paying for education and the cost that students are paying to stay in the dorms, or even just the cost aside from staying in the dorms, I think it's ridiculous that we can't provide a suitable housing environment for students. As it is, the dorms are tiny, and I simply don't think that we should shortchange our lower-income students.
Thank you for your responses. Our next question for this theme is, what resources will you provide to help first-generation students graduate college? First, we'll hear from Isabel and Metzin.
Part of this is representation, right? Investing in helping students and elevating their experiences at different points of leadership, such as our administration not only brings simply representation, but also experience. We have a lot of foundation experience that we have been building through our years so far at OSU. We're very interconnected with our own communities and other communities that provide support for each other and one another. And we also have access to these resources such as lobby days, such as HSRC and all these information that we can definitely hand off to students in order to cultivate a sense of belonging and keep them here.
And we really want to empower students who are either first generation students, students of color, underrepresented students from LGBTQ, and we really want to provide those resources. For example, myself, I was in the Coach Assistant Marketing program, and those summer bridges programs, that really help you a lot from mentors, from tutors, and really want to emphasize to put the resources up for the students so they know what the things they can do.
Next, Dylan and Emily.
As a first generation college student, and growing up in a rural community, I've recognized that really the mentorship programs and support programs like TRIO are so essential to making sure that first generation students have the resources that they may be lacking within their family or their community, that they have those resources through TRIO and through faculty and peer mentorship programs. I know that I became involved in those when I joined campus, and it really helped me transition, but there was also room for improvement in those. So under our administration, I would make sure that those programs have funding and that there's accountability to students who enter those programs so that they receive the maximum amount of resources to be successful here at OSU.
Now, Jack and Gretchen.
We agree with Emily, and we agree that without a sibling or parents who have previously attended college, the college experience could be very stressful. We do want to focus on the amount of growth that our mentorship program on campus could experience. Personally, I found the mentorship provided by university is inadequate, and they often match you through algorithms. And we want to just throw more mixers and matchers so you can meet these mentors personally, people who have similar demographic, maybe minority students or first generation students who have been there and have done what you're going to do and achieve a better fit between mentors and students. And then we think this is the best thing we can do for students who are first generation or minority or low income to successfully have the good college experience.
Yeah, we believe students really need to feel connected here on campus, whether that is through a peer mentor, whether that's to their teachers or other administration, and that's something that we really would like to focus on.
Our next question for this theme: do you have plans to increase accessibility around campus for students with disabilities and create conversations regarding disabilities? First, we'll hear from Dylan and Emily.
Well, this is actually a really timely question. We spoke with a group of students on Monday at sort of a coffee event. And this was actually one of the very issues that came up, is that disability access services on this campus often doesn't provide what students need or provides the bare minimum. And I think that we can do a lot in terms of initiatives within our own student government to provide better resources for students and to push for better resources from the university.
Yeah, and it's also not just about advocating on their behalf, but also making sure that they have a place in those decision makings through the faculty senate. I served on a faculty senate, and I've seen firsthand the policies that affect students. And now at OSU, there are not adequate student representation on those faculty senate. And in addition to recently funding that for the upcoming year, we want to encourage continued funding for that and student representation on all committees.
And now, Jack and Gretchen.
We would like to incorporate support for disability accessibility as one of the job sections for one of our coordinators going forward. We believe that's the best way to kind of get all the student organization and campus administration at play to focus on increasing accessibility to students with disability on campus.
Yeah, and one specific thing that we would like to change here on campus is that I've heard a lot of feedback that, at least in parking spaces, there hasn't been a no parking space near the disability parking space, and I'd like to add that next year. Thank you.
And now, Isabel and Metzin.
Right, increasing accessibility for DA's disability access services on campus also includes how we talk about these services and the people that need these services, because there also is a wide variety of people who have disabilities. Disability isn't listed. There's a wide variety of people who have disabilities and different needs that need to be assessed. So part of that is also communicating with their needs, meeting with people, and figuring out what they're not receiving. Because this issue needs to be treated with equity, not equality.
And adding to what Isabel says, language and really breaking the stigma about those wordings, it's really important to us, and we want to also include new initiatives for our students, and anything from the classroom to events on campus where they really feel that sense of belonging.
We will now begin with Dylan and Emily's rebuttals.
You know, I just want to bring this back into the issue of means testing and barriers to entry. I think this applies very much to disability access services in the same way that applies to nutrition assistance or it applies to housing assistance. You know, many students are in a position where it's quite difficult to navigate those systems in order to access the resources they need, or they might be denied for benefits that they need to succeed in their education. So we need to fight to make sure that students are represented in that, and I think ASOSU's own Office of Advocacy is a great start to that.
All right, thank you. The next question for this theme is, with all of your plans to improve the university, how will you help yourselves and your team stay ambitious and avoid burnout? First, we'll hear from Jack and Gretchen.
I think a weekend trip to In-N-Out is a great way to start, but also we should allow each of the team members to take sick days and mental health days to avoid burnout. Personally, I think I have a friend who's very good at motivational speaking. Whenever I go talk to her, I get super hyped. I will encourage each of my team members to find a person like that they can regularly talk through their problems about, and relying on those mentorship programs that I talked about before to keep themselves motivated and engaged on their goals and what they want to see change on campus.
And I truly believe that Jack and I will not ever get burnt out. I mean, we are still freshmen. We have a long road ahead of us and a lot of changes that we would like to see here on campus.
Yes, we haven't been caffeinated yet and we're still fine.
All right, next is Isabel and Metzin.
We would really want to bring a culture of energy and a sense of belonging where everyone feels it's inclusive, and we bring different workshops around awareness, anything from diversity initiatives to mental health to climate change, because we really believe that each individual is very powerful in our team, and without them we couldn't be able to do any of our goals. So we really want to empower them and be able to be there for them, to listen to them, even if it's just listen to them actively or just having a dialogue with them.
Definitely. The wellness of our team would be very important to us, very top priority. We have a wide variety of resources, but not everyone's receiving those resources equitably, and it's just so important for students, especially college students. I've experienced intense burnout through different stages towards the end of terms, where I'm just working on these projects, working on advocacy for students and getting people resources, and it's just so difficult without having a supportive network that's integrated in the things that I do.
All right, now Dylan and Emily.
The three pillars of our campaign are accountability, transparency, and representation. And I really believe that as someone who's involved in a lot, I know that I minimize burnout by remembering why I'm there. And as under our administration, putting students first and making sure that their voices are heard really means being accountable to them. And if you're accountable to students, then you're constantly inspired, because there is so much to change here on our campus. And under accountability, that means having 24/7 open forums on our website for suggestions, making sure that students can always reach out to us, and also making sure that there's live streams at more than just this, at the meetings and when decisions are being made, so that students have feedback, and so that we're really doing meaningful things for the student body.
Thank you. Our next question is, with OSU not on track to meet its 2025 carbon neutral goal, and with ASOSU recently passing a climate emergency resolution, how would you follow through on holding the university accountable for continuing to increase sustainability and meet its own goals? Isabel and Metzin, your answer?
So one of our goals for sustainability is really advocating for students and for them to know more information about what's going on, and also being realistic about our goals within our administration. For example, the university studying the 2025 being carbon neutral. We want to emphasize the importance of bringing more awareness to the table. Anything from campus groups from OSU Foundation to campus groups on campus to the sustainability office, and really advocating for our students. And even if it's lobby days here in Salem in Washington, D.C. When I was in Washington, D.C. this past summer, I was be able to see all the different action that is being taken into it, and really want to bring more awareness and support for students. For example, last week we were talking with an organization here on campus about reusable cups and just finding ways to meet those goals.
Definitely. Talking to administrators and being realistic about the goals that they have is very important to us, and a way to keep them accountable, because this requires a lot of money to do things that they just didn't have funding models for.
And now Dylan and Emily.
So, I feel like I'm saying this phrase a lot. I helped write the climate emergency resolution along with Senator Nikolai Galtsev, who's a champion for climate policy on this campus and at the Oregon State Capitol. And I've worked with him as part of our government relations team, along with Hannah Cooten, who's done a lot of great work on this issue, to speak to legislators directly and to attend carbon reduction committee hearings in terms of seeing what we can do on Senate Bill 1530, which is the successor to House Bill 2020, which was the Clean Energy Jobs Bill in the last session. So this is an issue that we've already continuously fought for and that we want to continue to move forward in this campaign.
And now Jack and Gretchen.
Environmental issues are a very critical part of our campaign, and I find that there's a lot of separate groups here on campus that are doing the same, that are working on the same initiatives across campus. And under our administration, we would like to unite these groups. One really great idea is under a website. It would be very accessible to the student population. It would show different clubs who are working on different initiatives, small things that every student could do to make the environment a better place, and different lobbying effects that they could join.
And we would like to come up with big asks supported by this platform, such as next year we would like the UHDS and the university as a whole to consider converting all food waste we produce on the on-campus dining halls into fertilizer farms. As big agricultural schools, I feel like we have the technical capacity to do that. So the only thing lacking will be the university's follow through to its climate change goals.
And now Isabel's rebuttal.
A big part of our transparency pillar within our campaign is changing how we talk about things, right? Because even just talking about sustainability and just like how those sustainable practices are, they're not cheap in some way that people are saying commonly, right? Like, oh, go buy grass-fed beef, go buy these expensive products that are supposed to be carbon neutral. Not everyone has access to these resources, and part of it is changing the accessibility of the students have to like being sustainable, and also changing how we talk about these things because they're centered around a certain dominant culture, and I didn't get involved in sustainability initiatives until I found it through my own literature and my own social groups of how I could connect with this and understand it better.
And now Dylan's rebuttal.
So I also wanted to be sure to highlight another initiative that we've taken in ASOSU that I had the good fortune to work with Zach Pinard on writing and introducing into the ASOSU Senate last year, which is that now ASOSU pays for carbon offsets for all of its air travel. This in particular comes into play in our Washington, D.C. trip, which is open to all students in the spring. And this resolution is one of many cases where real change happens from the bottom up and not from the top down.
Thank you, candidates. We will now take a short break, and when we return, we will hear another question directly from the student body.
I joined Orange Bee Network as a freshman. It was my second week of being a freshman here, and I was looking for an opportunity to get involved in something on campus. And I had done a little bit of high school journalism, not a lot, but I came up here to the 4th floor. I saw the TV studios, I saw the radio booth, I saw all the computers, and I thought, this is super cool. This is something I want to get involved in. And I joined the Barometer team as a freshman. I learned so many things that I would have never learned in a classroom. Not only did I learn how to do journalism, how to design a newspaper, how to produce a TV show. I learned skills on top of that are definitely going to help me in whatever I go do with my life. These past 4 years, OMN has meant to me to be a place where I can come and be myself, where I can come and challenge myself, push myself, learn and grow. It's a place where you come up here and you think you know who you are, you think you know the type of leader that you are, the type of person that you are, but you look back as a graduating senior 4 years later and think, wow, I am not the same person as I was when I stepped on this floor the very first time as a freshman. My name is Lauren Sless. I am the producer of Spotlight at KBVR TV at Orange Media Network.
Welcome back. Let's take another question from the student body.
Why are fees increasing, and what can ASOSU do to decrease those fees?
Dylan and Emily, your answer?
So this is a great question, and I think it's one that we need to address. I think the number one way that we do this is to make sure we have better representation of students. Right now, the Student Fee Committee at-large seats are uncontested in this upcoming ASOSU election. The House of Representatives has 11 people running for 20 undergraduate seats and only 1 graduate student running for 5 available graduate seats. So what the result of this is that anyone who shows up has a deciding say in the student fee process, and then the rest of the seats are filled by appointment. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we have competitive elections so that the students can hold their leaders accountable in terms of fee-setting decisions.
All right. Jack and Gretchen, your response?
Oh, yes. We have to explain a little bit about student fees. There's this idea CSL, which is current service levels, that's expected to rise about 3% every year due to inflation if enrollment stays still. What causes the increase that you see in student fees are these things called decision packages that each student fee funded units tag on to be approved. Like Dylan said, the current lot of seats in the House are uncontested. If you would like us to decrease them, grab all your friends, apply to be appointed to the House of Representatives next year, and then vote down those decision packages and say that we need to be more responsible with our money.
All right. Isabel and Metzin, your response?
Student fees are increasing because of lack of representation as far as people coming from different backgrounds, so especially socioeconomic and underrepresented communities. I've heard a lot of discussion, especially in the student fee process setting, that was quite disturbing as far as making arguments, you know, it's just another 17 cents, it's just another couple dollars, but like what I hear, it's someone is gonna not be able to afford a class. Someone might be behind a term. Someone might not be able to make those credits or register for classes because they haven't been able to pay off their past term because everything adds up. And as they mentioned, as far as everything's increasing, and it's just disheartening hearing that.
And adding to what Isabel says, we really want to have conversations with our students where like we can have like just a normal conversation about these fees and reaching out to different colleges, to different campus partners, and bring those voices into those House and those Senate seats so that we can like have a better conversation and not only represent some students, but like there are other students who are here in our campus who make OSU.
All right, Dylan and Emily, your rebuttal?
And adding to what Dylan said about making the elections more competitive, one thing that the Senate is voting on probably right now is that we want to restructure the way the ASOSU Congress is structured by reducing the number of seats and potentially adding constituent seats, which would give every group on campus representation directly from those places to make sure that every student's voice is heard in the student fee setting process.
Okay, thank you candidates for your responses. We will now move to the third and final theme of the debate, platform and experience. The first question is for Jack and Gretchen. How have you prepared to take on such an important role on this campus?
We're going first. Okay.
Well, we see a very mild disconnect between ASOSU and the student body, and Jack and I are here to change that. We also see that ASOSU has fallen behind in marketing compared to society today, and that's something that our initiatives are really focused on.
And now Isabel and Metzin.
We're very well prepared to take on this role on campus. Personally, I've been involved with a lot of student groups, lots of organizations. I'm involved with ASOSU for 2 years. I already have experience working with different organizations. Not only do I meet people on the campaign trail, but I have personal relationships with people who are involved in a wide variety of organizations on campus. I've also been involved with ASOSU for about 2 years. I have lobbying experience at the Capitol of Salem with the other students, lobbying with Beaver Caucus, and finding out ways how to make things better and more equitable for students. I also work at community engagement and leadership, and we do a lot of equity work there too.
We are not just leaders with a title, we have actually been invested. I've been personally heavily involved on campus in all my 4 years, anything from minorities in agriculture, natural resources, from the College of Ag Science, to being a tour guide, providing resources for the students. I've also been involved in ASOSU, as well as this past summer I was in Washington, D.C., where I really was invested in those conversations, those policy portfolios from education, from natural resources, and really working out the instruction of how we can add momentum to decisions by adding new members to our different groups. And I've also been connected with multiple campus partners from Greek life to being an unrepresented student myself. So programs like EOP camp, and really bringing those voices. That's what Isabel and I want to bring into the administration, because we believe we are prepared to take on this role to bring new culture and new awareness and energy to our campus.
And now Dylan and Emily.
Our campaign, and I want to reiterate this, is focused on progressive, people-centered change. And what that really means is we have to recognize the critical moment we're at in terms of student services. We don't have the time we think we have, and it's been said that the only thing it takes to hamper progress or for injustice to persist is for people to do nothing. So we're glad to say that you don't have to put faith in our campaign promises. With 5 years of collective experience, we're the only ticket that's already sponsored and passed legislation on all the key issues highlighted in our campaign platform.
And now Jack and Gretchen's rebuttal.
While it's true that Jack and I are freshmen and new to this campus, I don't think it takes 3 years or more than that to understand how ASOSU works and what we can change to embed student experience. And that's something that Jack and I are really working to focus on. We are constantly have our feet on the ground. We are constantly engaging with students, and that's something that will really work towards our future administration.
And now Isabel and Metzin's rebuttal.
About experience in legislation, I don't believe legislation is very important, writing bills and passing that in ASOSU Congress, of course, it's one of the big jobs that they do, but I don't believe that's the only way you can make a positive impact on this campus. Getting voices heard, the student fee setting process last year was just so emotionally taxing and exhausting because of getting the students' voices, getting them that information, getting us, ourselves, and my friends and I were doing a lot of communication between athletics, between the different cultural resource centers to getting those voices heard, because it's so important, because it's integral.
And now Dylan and Emily's rebuttal.
So I'd just like to actually agree with Representative Fujimara in saying that I don't think it does require 3 years to have an impact on our student legislative process. But I also say, with great respect for the work that Isa and I have done on mediation committees and that Jack and I have had in conversation, in saying that if we're not introducing legislation over the course of 2 years in these positions or a year in these positions, we're really sort of underserving our role. And as president, it's one thing to be opposing bad ideas that come across our desk, but we also got to be out there and be for something as well.
All right. The next question is, with OSU's next president stepping up this July, how will you engage with a new administration that is not as familiar with ASOSU and student concerns? Isabel and Metzin, you may respond.
Pressing the importance of getting students involved, getting that outreach, getting the advocacy, and being the importance of transparency with the administration, especially with the students. One of the issues that happened with the previous or the outgoing administration is carbon neutrality by 2025. Students know that's not going to happen. Students are realizing that's not going to happen, and it's very disheartening. And transparency is such an important tool of working with different students and different student groups and getting them involved, because without transparency, there's no representation, and we understand the value of representation.
And we really want to be like liaisons between not only ASOSU, but also the students and administration to really like share out what is going on. For example, last week with my admissions team, we were at the OSU Foundation luncheon, and we really like, were implementing the voices that like we want to hear from them and they want to hear from us.
All right, next is Dylan and Emily.
So with the experience that we've brought in these positions, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I feel like Bernie Sanders here saying, I wrote the damn bill. But, there's really something to be said for that. The carbon emergency resolution or the climate emergency resolution, I think is a big step towards this. But we've also taken it a step further in terms of our advocacy to the university administration and to the Capitol. And really, I think this is where our campaign pillar of accountability really most comes into play, is telling the university that if you make a promise, you got to follow through on it.
Now, Jack and Gretchen.
I think with the new administration and the new president of the school, we have some exciting new possibilities to create change. I think we'll be more open to the feedback that ASOSU will be providing. I believe that ASOSU is the greatest outlet of student voice to the administration. We look forward to working with the new president to enact changes that impact student lives.
And while it's true that we do have to work with the new administration, that doesn't mean that we must always agree with them. We're here representing the student voices.
That's 30 seconds.
Oh, that's cool.
Isabel, your response?
We will set the precedent that we will fight for students because students deserve people that will fight for them. I personally fought on advocacy issues for students for the emotional student fee setting process because the students are heard by the administrators. They need to bring those perspectives. They need to know that these are our priorities of food security, wellness, and providing overall sense of well-being and cultivating well-being, and also hiring and funding the retention or providing those retention services for faculty of color.
Jack and Gretchen, your rebuttal?
When we first started our campaign, we reached out to Rachel Josephson, the current president. She told me that Oregon State has the strongest student government in all of the United States. And we hope to keep up that tradition and show that we are a strong student government that makes the student voices heard at the highest level at the schools.
All right, our next question in this theme is, do you feel that the average student understands how ASOSU works and the scope of its power? And if not, how will you educate the OSU community on its student government? First, Dylan and Emily.
No, we need to do better. That's
Well,
it.
One thing that I'm really passionate about is the accountability and transparency aspect of our platform. My focus will really be, Dylan and I have both been working on have previous experience on the archiving committee and the outreach committee, which really are responsible for making sure that the student body has access to what ASOSU is doing and how it works through the website and through outreach. And so one thing I really want to make sure is that there are live streaming of our events, that there's forums on the website for student feedback, and also that there are educational resources on the website and that they're easily accessible, so that every student can seek out that information, but also that as under our administration that we're holding the ASOSU representatives accountable for continually reaching out to those groups and educating them so they don't have to do all the work to find out that information.
And now Jack and Gretchen.
The answer is still no. I don't think a lot of students understand what ASOSU is, and we'll do whatever we can, incorporating new technology to get us there. Whether we have to go on Twitch, we'll go on Twitch. If we have to get vloggers to do it, we'll get vloggers to do it, YouTubers to do it, TikTokers to do it. Even if we have to go on Instagram, Facebook, if we have to put ads on Tinder to get ASOSU out there to the student body, we will do it, and we'll make sure students are aware of ASOSU next year.
And we realize that no matter how many wonderful and great things that ASOSU does, it doesn't matter unless there's students that know about these resources and can utilize them. So really, creating the connection between ASOSU and the students is the most critical part of any campaign, I would agree.
And now Isabel and Metzin.
No, students definitely do not understand the importance of ASOSU, and part of it has to do with the representation and the people that are in these positions of leadership. Because part of even when I wasn't getting involved in ASOSU or I first heard about it, I was like, they don't know how I feel. They don't know how my friends feel. They don't understand what it's like for them to be on this campus and exist and be a member of a representative community. And I understand they're working hard at that, but part of it has to come, the change from the top down. It has to come with the representation and the shift of leadership. So students don't get deterred. And because you can do all these social market media stuff campaigning, but the issue is if they don't see themselves in it, they're not gonna engage.
We really want to take a different approach of going to people and talk with them about ASOSU, and actually bring new intersection from student government to initiatives on climate change or fashion, bringing those awareness to our campus. It really changes this perspective that ASOSU is in this pedestal and bringing it out to the student voices. We can really change what we have for ASOSU for our students.
We will now begin with Dylan and Emily's rebuttal.
You know, my initial answer on this was much better articulated by Emily. But you know, I don't think that frustration is unwarranted, and I think, you know, this is one of those things where all the candidates on this stage get it. But it's just a matter of what we do about it. I don't think there's a organization on campus that advocates for students that's more out of touch than ASOSU. And I say that as someone who's worked and volunteered and been involved with ASOSU the entire time I've been here at Oregon State University. This was no clearer to me than about a year ago when we had the DCE student fee unit was in mediation, and if it weren't dysfunctional enough that students had to come in tiers during the Senate meeting to sort of make clear that they didn't feel as though the resources they needed were being provided. To add insult to injury, they had to come on Wednesday for an almost duplicate meeting with the Student House of Representatives. And they had to come before that with the Student Fee Committee, and they had to go after that with the JC. So, you know, I just don't think that this is something we should be putting students through.
And now Jack and Gretchen's rebuttal.
By focusing on social media, we don't want to undermine the value of boots on the ground. Last term, I made a personal goal to talk to 13 new students every day. I got about to 350 before final weeks hit, and I had to pause it to save my GPA. But we also want to acknowledge that there's a refusal to engage students with the social media platform or channels that they're most comfortable with. We're at a great loss if we don't realize the great potential we have in going on to stuff like TikTok. You may think it's a joke, but these channels engage students' attentions for a long time. We have students on campus who are influencers in this domain. Their videos and content get thousands, if not millions of views. If we get students engaged onto these influencers and we speak and work with these influencers to deliver our message, I think ultimately we could be more successful than just having boots on the ground or canvassing or liaisoning with different student organizations.
And now Isabel and Metzin's rebuttal.
I disagree with Dylan that ASOSU has done a good job with representing student voices on this campus because of the emotionally taxing efforts of the students with the DCE fee. The thing is that I've never seen better organization through the students through DCE because they have to navigate these avenues and they support other students and they bring students with them. And from what I've learned from those experiences and being surrounded in such a supportive community, that needs to be at the pinnacle point of student leadership, which is ASOSU. Because I do believe ASOSU is important in that way of student leadership, but I do not believe it equitably provides the voices of all students. It's just not how it's been. And it has to do a lot with the leadership. And that's not what this administration will do. We won't leave them out to dry. They won't fall through the cracks.
And now Dylan and Emily's rebuttal.
Well, with due respect, I do have to identify and sort of clarify what I meant in saying that the students in DCE weren't the problem here. They were the solution. ASOSU was the problem here. The issue at hand is that DCE shouldn't have to come and ask for adequate funding for the cultural resource centers that are on our campus. The funding should be provided off the bat. You know, I've talked to Mohammed Shakibnia, who's a member of the Student Fee Committee and really an advocate for student voices, and something that he's said is these sorts of services shouldn't have to be funded by student fees in the first place because they should be funded by the university itself fully. It is absolutely ridiculous that students have to tax themselves just to have the adequate resources we need on campus, and as president, I would work to change that.
And Isabel's rebuttal.
And I believe it's absolutely ridiculous and baffling that the administration has relied so much on the backs of these students that are underpaid and overworked to do this diversity work and diversity initiatives because of the identities they hold. It's not integrated in the structural changes that need to happen at this university, and even just as a society, it's just gross to me that everything gets pushed to the CRCs. Oh, do this for the CRCs, do that, and it's It needs to come from the top, and administrators rely on students to do the work, and they take the credit for it. And that's not fair. That's wrong.
We are going to move on now to our fourth question.
Our next question in this theme is, what is your leadership style and how will you lead a diverse student body, especially serving alongside students who may not always agree with you? First, Jack and Gretchen.
My leadership skill could be summarized by more of a parenting skill. I spent years in the Boy Scouts, tutoring my friends and negotiating conflicts. I like to take and go out and recruit very capable people and make them work together. This inevitably leads to conflicts and clash of heads. I like to take people aside, comfort them, hear what they have to say, and reach a compromise so these people can keep working together.
I personally have worked as a Starbucks manager for over a year, and that's given me a lot of perspective and real life experience when it comes to managing people 2 times older than I am, when it comes to dealing with angry customers, as there are a lot at Starbucks. And I've come through these situations stronger than before, and I think I have a very diverse skill set when it comes to managing people and making sure that there's no conflicts.
Now, Isabel and Metzin.
I like to maintain my leadership very casual, very friendly, so I'm approachable, right? Because if people see me as this scary, authoritarian figure, they're not going to want to talk to me. And that decreases transparency, that decreases accessibility. People need to be able to feel comfortable with me, and also by doing that, having this pinnacle baseline respect for everybody and the things that they need to say, and willing to listen to each other, because that's where I've learned the most, is listening to people who don't agree with me. And some people know how very opinionated I am, but I definitely value in talking to these people, and also being open to being corrected when I'm wrong is also very important too.
I will describe my leadership style as being something that I'm there to listen to people, to be able to I see potential in people. I see leaders. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert. I'm gonna be there for you, to support you and give you the resources to uplift you and be there for you. I also believe that it's very, very important to be welcoming and throwing some jokes, some fun, especially because sometimes as students we go through ups and downs and really want to be there for them no matter what, and sometimes throwing in some fashion style or photo shoots for our students too.
Dylan and Emily, your response.
This is actually one of my favorite questions. My leadership style, I like to say it's a lot like Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation, which might sound silly, but she really is selflessly serviceful to people, because she, no matter how much time a project takes, no matter how much it personally takes out of her, she genuinely enjoys that, and that's really what my leadership style is like. Just an example, I love doing the tedious work, I love listening to people and making sure that their voices are heard, like Leslie in a town hall who listens and hears everyone out no matter how long it takes. That's really my leadership style.
And I'd say much of the same. I've developed a bit of a bad reputation around the office as the yes but person, sort of yeah, I agree, but what about this? And I think a critical thing we need to bring into leadership is welcoming dissent. As part of this campaign, we've spoken to groups that we agree with, and we've spoken to groups that we disagree with. And I think you're never going to have the full picture if you just talk to folks that think like you.
Our next question, hypothetically speaking, if you were to sign a bill that later received public criticism that it wasn't appropriate to the scope of the issue, how would you respond to the situation? First, Isabel and Metzin.
It depends who's critiquing this bill, but clearly someone is unhappy. Clearly an error was made, and we're going to do the best that we can to right that, right? To communicate to the people, to invite them in the office, hang out with them, I don't know what it is to make the setting more casual in order to make them comfortable and ourselves comfortable. And we're very open to criticism and learning for those mistakes that we made, and that's part of our accountability is having those difficult discussions with people who aren't cool with the decisions we made, and coming out better from those mistakes.
And adding to what Isabel says, also adding amendments and passing new initiatives to amend that bill, and see how through community advocacy we can reach out to different groups and organizations. For example, even on the U.S. government, that sometimes happens, but we always got to look at the good things that we have and work from their ground up.
And now, Dylan and Emily.
One example of a bill receiving criticism would be the recent ASOSU mediation committee meeting that we had, decide whether we were going to support the GTA for Safe Ride or representation on the faculty senate. And And there's always going to be disagreement about what's really important, and I think sometimes we have to remember that if we want to really help students, we have to really look at what is really important, and sometimes that's not choosing between one or the other. And even if not everyone agrees, it's important to stand behind what's really important, especially if it's regarding student safety or representation.
And now, Jack and Gretchen.
I welcome that criticism. The criticism is great because it means people are actually listening and they actually care. I would love to go grab water at Java Stop with them because I don't drink coffee and talk about them with the kind of concern that they have with the bill. I would also love to invite them to come to the House and Senate meetings and also to the potential mediation meetings. And last of all, I will encourage them, beg them even, to come and give ASOSU a shot so that their voices are heard and the people that they represent can be represented in ASOSU.
Okay, thank you candidates for the discussion. We will now move on to the final portion of tonight's debate. All tickets will have 2 minutes to provide closing statements. Dylan and Emily, you may begin.
So I just want to start by saying that, again, our slogan is Your Voice Matters, and that really means putting students first, which is why we want to really hear from you. Our platform is your platform, so if you have an issue on campus that you need addressed or you want to make sure that it's going to be a priority for us, please reach out to us on our social media. We're at Your Voice Matters OSU on Instagram and Facebook, and our website is yourvoicemattersosu.com.
You know, in these elections, as with always, the stakes are clear. We have to ask ourselves, what do we believe in? We believe in students, and we believe in people. We believe in education as a right and as an investment in our community, and not something that students should have to incur tremendous debt for. We believe everyone has and should have an opportunity to move themselves forward from the previous generation. And we believe in what, for all its flaws, ASOSU and self-governance can really be. You know, we can't wait to bring meaningful change to students. The time's now. And that's why we'll put students and, more importantly, student needs first, because your voice matters.
Next, Jack and Gretchen.
Okay. These are succulents, and I think college students are actually a lot like succulents. We all need a lot of air, metaphorically speaking, to grow. We need to be dusted of our troubles. We need to be given adequate sunlight and water to grow. And our platform is CIA, Connect, Inspire, Acknowledge. We want to connect these small little succulents, freshmen, to each other so that they have a community around them that will grow with them for the next 4 years. Moreover, we want to inspire these succulents to grow bigger, maybe into like bonsai-sized trees, to become stronger. And moreover, we want to acknowledge these little succulents, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, when they do become like bigger boys and girls, and whoever they choose to identify with, and then acknowledge the steps and strides they're making. And moreover, we want to acknowledge the voice of these succulents in front of these evergreen trees, the school administrators that I have talked about before, and make sure that as a collective, as a succulent forest collective, we have our voice represented to the few evergreen trees in the forest.
And we realize that most of the student body doesn't know what ASOSU is or the changes that they could make within this wonderful organization. And that's the first and foremost thing that we would like to change about ASOSU under our administration. Because we can do so many wonderful things, but if there's not students to enjoy them, what's the point? Please DM us on Instagram. Our @ is Fujimara_Hill, or even just come up and talk to us. We love to talk to students and gain your perspectives. Thank you.
And finally, Isabel and Metzin.
From the bottom of our hearts, we're really thankful for all the support we have received so far. Them united by students for students, them unidos para estudiantes por estudiantes, really stands out for our students. We really want to bring all the different voices to the table. We want to be there for you, to support you no matter what, even provide you with awareness initiatives, to bills, to anything that students need, because at the end of the day, we are in college for so long. We want to improve what we have and work on future goals that we have for our students. If you see us on campus, just say hi. If you see me on my scooter, on Isabel on on her bicycle, like see those leaders, because we don't want to be like those leaders that are just in a pedestal. We want to be there for our students, to like be able to have like conversations in a way that like all of us can understand. And if you need help with like an initiative or like introducing something, that we are here for you no matter what, because we act now in our accountability services too.
Definitely, and we also believe that students deserve student leaders who will fight for them. Student leaders who have shared experiences with them, student leaders that bring perspectives that haven't been there before or heard, or they've been there but they've been tokenized or shut down. Students deserve people who will fight for them and who will take risks for them as well. Because the things that need to happen, the change that needs to happen is structural, systemic change, and that's very difficult, but we are willing to risk and we are willing to fight for those students and get their voices heard and bring the change that ASOSU hasn't seen and this administration hasn't seen, and we'll bring that with and we'll set that precedent with the incoming OSU president. And it's just so important to us because we're not seeing change and no one's doing it, so we have to be the change, because you have to be the change you want to see. And we take that it's so important to us. And yeah, and it's just so important to us to be the champions of that, to fight for students, because we're damn united.
Candidates, thank you for your thoughtful answers, and students, thank you for your insightful questions.
Voting opens Monday, February 17th at 12:01 a.m. and closes on Friday, February 21st at 9:59 p.m.
The Barometer will provide election coverage throughout the week, and the reports for the election after voting closes on Friday, February 21st, both on social media and online at thedailybarometer.com.
Thank you all for watching from all of us here at Orange Media Network and ASOSU. I'm JC Kalama.
And I'm Jade Minsloff. Thank you and good night.